What I was really interested in is what does this look like from like a Chinese military planner's perspective?
Right.
It's the old it's the old turn the map around principle that like every military officer learns at some point. Because that was something that was always that I I I always saw that as being lost in the conversation here in Washington, about this issue. Because presumably, like the American response in this scenario would mostly be, in the like in the air and at sea. But the Chinese military planners would have to think about the war on the ground because wars are only won on the ground ultimately.
Right.
And an invasion would involve putting a lot of soldiers on the ground in Taiwan. And I never heard anybody really talking about that in any great detail. So that was what we really focused on. Was I mean, we had to, we had to talk about how there's all kinds of there's a strategic reason why the Chinese aren't likely to do this, namely the risk of nuclear escalation. There are political and economic concerns that the Chinese leaders would have to consider as well, because there would be major costs, political and economic costs, were they to launch an invasion. And we make this point in the report that the practical military considerations, and I argue this vociferously, like I think the military argument against the invasion is actually the weakest of all four of them, but it's
Mm.
still a really strong argument, and it deserved a whole lot more attention than it was getting throughout about a decade's worth of inflated rhetoric here in Washington, claiming that the Chinese are poised to invade Taiwan at any moment.
Let me go back to how you start this whole thing.